Hello, let's do our live stream today. We are in Aix-en-Provence, and today is June 23rd, 2026. Our live stream today is about amendments, parties, and the corruption of belonging. Now, you can understand what I want to talk about in a very meaningful way, right? Because I'm talking to you about something that is very important, belonging. Belonging is something that is only ours, that we feel, we perceive these things. And when you have something where you have the corruption of belonging, it means that someone came into your sense of belonging and simply took it. So you simply end up with a sense of belonging hijacked somewhere. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Amendments, parties, and the corruption of belonging. Because sometimes it's common. I have some friends and colleagues, brothers and cousins and relatives who suddenly become hijacked by a political party. And this hijacking by a political party is a very strange thing, or hijacked by a religious line, Christian, Buddhist, I don't know. What's the religious line? They become hijacked by that line. This hijacking hijacks the sense of belonging. It's a corruption of the very essence of belonging. And people think that this sense of belonging is about control. Look, we have a need for belonging. Belonging is a human need. So we want to belong. And this sense of belonging is something. That depends on the information we receive. If the information we receive, which everyone is receiving, is a stimulus that comes to everyone, then we are in the stimulus that is coherent with everyone and we belong to the stimulus. Okay? But what if the stimulus is false? What if the social media information is false? You have a false sense of belonging. What is the purpose of a false sense of belonging? It serves whoever is leading the group. Whoever is controlling this information has a monetary advantage, a political advantage, an advantage in terms of votes, an advantage in polarizing the issue, and everyone is polarized over something that may be false, but the parliamentary amendment is not false. Brazil in the whole world is a country with such great corruption, so great through parliamentary amendments, but the amendments are legal. Wait a minute, how can there be such great corruption in parliamentary amendments? Parliamentary amendments were established during the Temer administration, enabling them, and this was significantly expanded during the Bolsonaro administration. The Lula administration continued to build on this. It's a network, it's enormous corruption going through political parties, amendments, and politicians, and it practically has no backing. The amendments are without backing, but we're not going to talk about that because we're going to talk about the amendments, the parties, and the corruption of belonging. Because when an amendment arrives in a city to build a square, to build a sports court, to build a daycare center, when that amendment arrives in that city has a sense of belonging to itself. It has its needs. And with those needs, the city comes and goes and builds the daycare center. The city will build a daycare center. The politician comes to help the city with the daycare centers. But no, that politician, when that politician built the daycare center, you lose the symbolism of us building the daycare center. And we end up owing something to that politician who built the daycare center, the sports court, or that dam, or that road, or that bridge. So the loss of belonging here is fundamental because you will lose the sense of belonging due to the symbolism of that politician seeing and saying in the region, I am the one who helps this region develop, because that politician simply wants votes. This politician is corrupting the very concept of ownership. Look, I'm not even talking about the possible bribery and money laundering involved in these parliamentary amendments that take more money than the executive branch itself. It's the legislature taking over the entire executive branch for itself. There's a legalized corruption in itself. Why? Our legislature is the one that plans the future. It plans the future for the executive to execute. The legislature, which plans the future, has taken and sought money for itself, so it's managing itself and becoming an executive. The legislature is stealing power from the executive branch through money seized in amendments. Okay, just a problem that Brazil will solve in another way. We have to go there and negotiate politically, all that stuff. What I'm talking about is the population. The population can lose the symbol of collectivity and become dependent on small adjustments from this politician or that politician. And these adjustments and this feeling that this politician is our leader and a fixed leader. Let me recap for you so you understand a little bit about collectivity. In true communities, something we call givasa actually happens. What is givasa? You have a school of fish, a flock of birds, and these birds fly from one side to the other. And the leader at the front of the flock keeps changing positions. The leadership changes. I gave you a very strong example. If you are a good leader, if you have this sense of givasa, you are like a conductor, where you let the musicians, at each moment of the orchestra that is playing, at each moment, this musician shines, that musician sparkles, that other one shines, and you control the synchronicity of the movements and the highlights of the characters. So you control the movement and almost solidify the highlight, the light, the brilliance of the individuals who will play a part in that movement. And then you have the divas and the sense of belonging, everyone contributing to each other. And in each one or another becomes a leader. Okay, back to our political process, back to the pastor, back to the priest, back to the religious leader or community leader who has been in power for more than a decade. If the community, religious, or political leader remains in power for another decade, there is no givasa. The only interest is in monetization. The only interest is in corrupting your sense of belonging, hijacking your sense of belonging, total dependence on this leader. This leader will control everyone so that everyone values him as a leader. What kind of leader is that, right? It's not a leader. It's people who don't understand the common good. It's people who decide that life should revolve around having power. They're people who want power. And then they simulate empathy. They simulate laughter. They simulate well-being. But they have a marketing team behind them. They go there and advertise and advertise. It looks so and so. You have to assume such and such a persona. And that persona is you're honest, you're this and that, you're kind. And why assume a persona? Because on social media, that persona will have more impact. It will reach further. But hold on a minute. Social media isn't connected to the community. It lacks coherence. It doesn't engage with that face-to-face collective. Yes, but it's quite controlling. And social media isn't regulated. That's precisely because political leaders don't allow social media to be regulated because they're profiting greatly from it. Let me explain this more easily, much more easily. In Brazil, we have something like a large farm. The entire national territory, a large farm, except that this farm, instead of being controlled by one person, is controlled by many. Or at least 200 CPF numbers, Brazilian individual taxpayer IDs, belonging to very rich people. Brazil, a huge farm controlled by around 200 CPF numbers belonging to very rich people. They are very rich people. These very rich people hide behind these CNPJ numbers, Brazilian company taxpayer IDs, funds, trusts, and a bunch of companies. They hide behind these CNPJ numbers, and they make this whole farm here in Brazil exploit people in a predatory way. It's about deforestation, mining, deforestation, and privatizing the state for themselves. These 200 CPF numbers, these 200 people close to that number, will try to seize control of the entire state. But they control the big farm, and the big farmer appoints overseers. Who are these overseers? Deputies, senators, ministers, presidents. Do you understand these people and the best government positions? You take the state, all the structures, the institutions of our state, and you take the most expensive ones. Judges, prosecutors, the best cars. You take the best positions. These best positions were placed there by hand, by selection. Who will be the president of Caixa Econômica? Who will go to Petrobras? Who will be in that part of the state, in that economic part, in that part of the scandals? Who runs this? Who runs that? So it's all done by selection. The one who puts this there is the owner of the farm, CPF numbers, that's all. It doesn't go beyond that. And where is the population being cheated? With the information you're receiving from social media, with the information you're receiving from the media, because the media consists of those 200 people, those 200 individuals with CPF numbers, Brazilian individual taxpayer IDs, hiding behind CNPJ numbers, Brazilian company taxpayer IDs. It's like psychopaths who hide behind that relative empathy with people, who manage to be empathetic with people, but are in fact simulating empathy. These CPF numbers also hide behind CNPJ numbers of clean companies, blah, blah, blah. Then you look behind hidden, this CNPJ that's inside this fund, which is a fund of the bank, I don't know, of someone's bank. And these funds hide and launder money here and launder it there. It's crazy, very complicated. And when PIX appears, for example, which could create a possibility of uncovering the trail of this money laundering and punishing the criminals, a congressman is already speaking against PIX, saying it will be taxed. You're right. The congressman is more concerned with defending criminals than anything else, attacking what could correct these flows. Look at the problem we're in. We've lost our sense of belonging in this regard, because now we've entered a collective where we have an easy enemy. You arrive in a bubble, and the enemy is so-and-so, that enemy party. Yes, but what is the purpose of this bubble? To kill the enemy. There is no purpose. You've been kidnapped because in the bubble you're in, there are only invented enemies all the time, and you have no purpose in the bubble. It's just a bubble of narratives against something. It's not in favor of doing anything. Here's something I learned in my life, and I learned, but how valuable was that? I learned this in the Atlantic forest. In the Atlantic forest, I went to a little place. I'll tell you the following. Imagine you're in the Atlantic forest and you're in a spot with a 56-meter radius, right? It's the Atlantic forest, a small area without trails. Within those 56 meters, you have a little road, something. You're in the middle of the Atlantic forest. You have to step all over those 56-meter radius areas. That's 110 meters in diameter, a kind of sphere in the Atlantic forest. You just have to walk there, nothing else. You don't need to walk in a straight line. You don't need to walk in curves, nothing. You just need to walk. And to walk, you have to step on most of the areas in that Atlantic forest. So knowing this, what happens? The Atlantic forest, if you walk a little here and there and take a small trail, in 2 or 3 months the trail disappears. The forest swallows everything. It's fantastic. The Atlantic forest is a blessing. And being there in that environment, you'll have to walk and step in many places. Where is the spring in this forest? Where is the waterfall? Where is there something beautiful in this forest? Then you want to get that thing. You want to get there, but you want to let the forest show you the way. You will look in the forest and you will know where you can go. Here is the soul of the thing. You will realize what you can reach. In the materiality of what you feel and perceive. You have a materiality. It didn't come from a screen. The information came from the real three-dimensional world. your senses, your smells, your awareness of the environment. This reality comes, and in this reality, you perceive what you can do. I can't go this way because there's a tree, there's a precipice. I don't go this way because this is real. And then you realize that you can. Because if you see narratives that, besides being false, tell you what you can't do, you become fixated. If you're in the Atlantic forest and you look at where you can't step, that's it, because you can't go there. There are thorns. You can't. There are a million don'ts, a million, and you become fixated, you freeze, and you enter into stress and anguish. That's what's happening with our social media. That's what's happening with political parties. They keep pointing out what can't be, what isn't, the enemy, the enemy, the enemy. And when pointing out what couldn't be, what is the political proposal of your party, your religion, your life? Many religions, in truth, only want tithes and offerings and tell you that after death you'll get a little house full of gold. And so it goes round and round, rolling round and round. That's basically it. If you take away the money, even that pastor or that priest will change professions. You understand? Money is very much linked to religiosity, but religiosity brings us peace, it brings us comfort, it brings us songs, it brings us harmony, it helps us overcome certain situations. So we need religiosity. We don't need these leaders who are close to psychopathy, who only want profit. I don't want to help you. I was very scared once when I even arrived at the Progressive Party, more to the left, something similar. I said, what we dream of as a party is to win minds and hearts. Look, you guys need to raise public awareness, and my awareness too. Why do you want to win me over? Why do you want to drag me into a consciousness that's alien to what I can have? So we have to develop this sense of belonging. When a politician, a political party comes to your city and builds a square, great, but is the money ours? It was the community that built it, and that community needs to be strengthened. And now it's different. The party keeps putting up banners, erecting statues, putting up symbols. One congressman becomes a symbol, another becomes a symbol, and so does the political symbol. There's no concern for people or for the development of individual well-being, let alone the collective. The Brazilian identity we had 40, 50 years ago, it's dissolving into social networks, into bubbles where one against all is an impressive thing. And there, without rules or norms, the big tech companies that control social networks are almost navigating freely, making almost infinite money. From the states and controlling them. The owner of the Brazilian farm places his henchmen in various media outlets to deceive the population, creating a sense of belonging based on a common enemy in narratives, something unrelated to your local reality. You end up with an enormous out-of-touch idealism and lose your way. You lose your sense of belonging. Then you need someone to blame. When you have someone to blame, you typically attack someone weaker. In Brazil, you target black people, the poor, those from the favela, or people with a different religion than yours, creating a scapegoat. So, in today's live stream, that's precisely what we want. We want to try to turn things around, to make you think like this. If you are a community, you are in your building, you are in this bar, you are on this court, you are in this church. This church is a community. We are all here. We are all together better than anyone else. That's what you have to feel. When you feel this community, feel the good of everyone, you start to navigate. You start to work with it. You start to work with the force that is a collective force. You take the idea of the collective and the collective controls you. Yes, it controls you not through narratives, but through real things that are happening to that collective. When something real happens for this collective, what happens? You feel good, you sense it, and if it's not this person who's going to do something, it's you who's doing it, it's someone else who's doing it. The best person to do this or that is already doing it naturally without needing to say, look, I did it, we did it, we together, all of us being one. When I say givasa, it's important in Portuguese to say we. We did it, we do it. We are together. It's not the leader, because the leader has to be flexible. If our leader is fixed, he doesn't have givasa. He only wants to monetize. Is it the same leader? Is it the same representative? This is not the leader. The leader moves within the community. He moves based on his abilities. The leader chooses who shines, and usually he doesn't even shine that much himself. He just chooses who will shine at the right moments. He synchronizes things, and the community gets along well and gets stronger and stronger. And the Brazilian spirit grows within this community. The Brazilian spirit of this community, near a waterfall, near the Atlantic forest, near an indigenous community, near this school, near this neighborhood. In each environment, there is an atmosphere that embraces us. In every place you go in the city, you feel like you belong there. You feel embraced. That's very important because you haven't let corruption seep into your sense of belonging. Belonging is something natural. Belonging is something that when you don't have it makes you a hostage. You're kidnapped by churches and communities and small bubbles that seek to take your sense of belonging, and then you'll fight for a cause that isn't yours. It's so common. You'll find someone, I've told you this a few times, that person who's so strong, so dedicated to a cause they didn't create. She was kidnapped for the cause because she needed a sense of belonging to a group, and that group gave her that sense of belonging so she could defend a cause. And the cause is simple. The easy enemy is right here, this enemy. So she was going to fight against this enemy. Every social problem, look, the problem is this enemy. So everything is easy. You turn all the complexities of life into a fight against an enemy that your bubble tells you what it is. And they invent narrative after narrative, and you have the corruption of belonging. In our political party amendments, it's truly a disgrace, a huge disgrace, because the legislature is trying to execute, it's trying to invade the executive branch, seeking more money, as much as it's working against the executive. The executive is the one that executes, not the legislature. And in executing, it also executes by placing political symbols to maintain the power of this or that party. So the party and the people are more important than the community. You've lost your sense of belonging, and that's something we can gradually change and improve. And where does improvement begin? Where does a new world and a new Brazil begin? In you, right here inside my head, inside your head. If you change, the world changes with us. So, folks, that's this week's live stream. Try to change your way of being and start seeing real things without the screen, what's real around you, and follow your intuition. Follow your way of being and your way of thinking, of being aware of this place, of these things. This awareness you have is important, but only if the information is real, not from screens, not from narratives. Real, what you witnessed, what your group experienced, not from narratives, truly experienced, taking that walk, drinking that water, doing that thing, playing, singing, experiencing life, and not through narratives or screens. To experience and live life. That's what I wanted to leave you with this week. Until next week, a big hug to everyone. I'm going to share it here because otherwise it won't work. It didn't turn off.